Let me tell you about the scariest ghost story that Roblox has ever told. It is the legend of a haunted player known only as Guest 666. If you played Roblox long enough, this name probably still gives you chills. For years, kids believed he was a real demon living inside the game itself. They said he could break every rule and do things no player ever could. And his story spread so far that he became Roblox's most famous monster. This is not just a scary story, it is a lesson in how legends are born. But to understand why he was so terrifying, you need one key piece of history. This legend is tied to a feature that most young players have never even seen. So today, let me break down the chilling story of Guest 666. Stay with me because the ending of this legend is stranger than you think. First, let me explain what a guest actually was on the old version of Roblox. Long ago, you did not even need an account just to start playing Roblox. You could jump into almost any game instantly as something called a guest. Guests were basically a free trial for anyone who was curious about the game. A guest was a faceless, temporary player with no real name of its own. Instead of a username, each guest was simply given a random number. So you might join a game as Guest 1, or Guest 90, or anything else. Guests all looked almost the same, with a plain and blocky default body. And here is the single most important detail for this entire spooky story. Guests were not allowed to talk or use the chat inside of games. They could run around and play, but they could not really speak at all. For today's players, that whole idea probably sounds strange and totally unfamiliar. They were silent by design, like ghosts drifting quietly through the servers. Because they had no name and no voice, guests already felt a little bit eerie. That built-in silence is exactly what made the legend so deeply unsettling. Because the story claimed that one special guest could do the impossible. That guest was called Guest 666, and the number alone scared people. In old stories and traditions, the number 666 means the beast or the devil. So the moment you heard that name, your mind already expected pure evil. The legend said Guest 666 was no ordinary silent player at all. They claimed he could talk inside games, which no normal guest could ever do. If a silent guest suddenly spoke to you, players believed something was very wrong. Imagine a faceless figure suddenly typing a message meant only for you. That single idea alone was enough to send shivers through any young player. But talking was only the very beginning of his supposed terrifying powers. The story said he could use secret admin commands inside of any game. That meant he could bend a game's rules however he wanted, whenever he wanted. People believed he could delete entire games with just a single command. They said he could ban any player he chose, instantly and forever. Some claim he could trap you inside a game with no way out at all. There was no boss fight and no real way to defend yourself against him. He could appear anywhere, at any time, inside of absolutely any game at all. And the way he supposedly looked only made the fear so much worse. In the Scariest version, his skin was pitch black, like a living shadow. His eyes glowed a bright, burning red that seemed to stare right into you. He was described almost like a vengeful spirit haunting the whole platform. The story said he mostly appeared to punish bullies and cruel players. So he was scary, but he also felt a little bit like a dark protector. A demon that hunted down bullies felt both frightening and oddly satisfying. That mix of terror and justice made the legend even more addictive to share. The devil connection turned a random number into something that felt deeply sinister. People treated the name almost like a curse you should never say out loud. Players swore that if you saw him, your game was about to be destroyed. Just spotting a guest acting strangely was enough to make people panic. Whole servers would empty out the very moment someone shouted his name. He became the ultimate campfire story for an entire generation of Roblox players. So how did the silent, faceless guest become Roblox's most feared demon? The truth is that the legend did not really have one single clear beginning. Rumors about a strange, powerful guest had floated around since 2008. Back then, guests were brand new, and nobody fully understood how they worked. That confusion left plenty of open room for scary stories to grow. In the early days, information mostly spread through word of mouth and forums. There was no easy way to check if any of it was actually true, so a wild claim could travel across the whole community in a single day. Nobody could prove the stories, but nobody could quite disprove them either. That open mystery is what kept the legend alive for so many years. players would quietly share half-remembered tales of a guest doing impossible things. Every scary rumor made the guest sound more powerful than the one before. The scarier the power sounded, the more players wanted to pass it along. Each retelling added a new power, a new sighting, or a new creepy detail. Slowly, all of those scattered rumors blended together into one terrifying character. But the legend truly exploded because of one thing above all else. In 2017, a popular Roblox animator brought the whole story to life. A creator known as ObliviousHD made an animated video about Guest 666. His version gave the demon that iconic black skin and those glowing red eyes. In his story, the guest was a vengeful spirit who stood up to cruel bullies. The animation itself was dramatic, emotional, and really quite creepy to watch. And for millions of young viewers, it made the legend feel completely real. The animation gave the legend something it never truly had before, a real face. Once you can picture a monster clearly, it becomes almost impossible to forget. Suddenly, everyone knew exactly what Guest 666 was supposed to look like. Kids rewatched the video, shared it, and dared each other not to look away. The video spread across the platform like wildfire, and the fear spread with it. Suddenly, the entire Roblox community was talking about one single spooky character. A vague old rumor had been turned into a full, unforgettable character. That is what happens when a legend finally gets the perfect storyteller. Now, let me pull back the curtain on what was really going on here. Guest 666 was never a real, all-powerful account controlled by a demon. It was a creepypasta, which is just a scary story shared across the internet. There was no evil player secretly deleting games and banning people at will. In fact, the biggest clue was hiding in plain sight the entire time. Remember, real guests were never actually able to talk inside of games. So a talking guest was not proof of a demon, it was simply impossible. That impossible little detail is exactly why the story felt so supernatural. Think about how ordinary the real explanation actually turns out to be. It was never a demon or a curse. It was pure community imagination. The fear was real, even though the monster behind it never actually was. The scariest legends always take something impossible and treat it as real. A creepypasta grows a little stronger every single time that someone repeats it. Nobody wanted to be the person who ruined the fun by doubting the story. Believing the legend was simply far more exciting than actually questioning it, and the animations only made that imaginary version look even more convincing. But here is the twist that almost nobody ever expected to happen. In late 2017, Roblox suddenly decided to remove all guests completely. They announced that the entire guest feature was being retired for good. By the very next year, guests were gone from the platform entirely. To be clear, Roblox never removed guests because of the scary legend. They retired the feature for their own reasons about accounts and safety. But the timing meant the legend and its home basically vanished together. And think about what that update actually meant for this famous legend. If guests no longer existed, then Guest 666 could never appear again. The most feared monster in Roblox history was erased by a simple update. You could no longer play as a guest, or ever meet one in a game. In a strange way, the legend died the very day that guests disappeared. The unstoppable demon was defeated not by a hero, but by a patch note. It is actually a little funny when you really stop and think about it. The scariest thing on all of Roblox was quietly switched off like a light. So let me bring this whole spooky story back to the bigger picture. How does a silent, faceless guest become a demon feared by millions of kids? The answer is the same magic behind every great ghost story ever told. One person shares a scary idea, and the next person makes it a little bigger. A number gets a dark meaning, an animation adds a face, and it all snowballs. Before long, a made-up creature feels far more real than the plain truth. The truth is far more ordinary, but in a way, it is just as fascinating. A story does not need to be real to change how millions of kids feel. It is the exact same way ghost stories have spread for hundreds of years. The only real difference is that this one spread through screens, not campfires. And that is exactly why Guest 666 still matters to players today. He is a perfect example of how the internet can build its own legends. The internet is basically a giant machine for turning small ideas into legends. Roblox just happened to give that machine one perfect, spooky little character. Even now, long after guests vanished, the spooky character still lives on. He shows up in fan games and animations as a creepy little tribute. What began as a vague rumor became a permanent part of Roblox history. Every new group of players adds their own little twist to the story, and so the legend keeps living on, long after guests themselves disappeared. Thousands of players built this monster together, without ever really planning to. That shared imagination is the true magic hiding inside this whole tale. So the next time you hear a scary Roblox story, please remember this one. Ask who first told it, and whether it was ever really possible at all. So treat online legends like fun puzzles, not like facts written in stone. Ask questions, look for the real source, and enjoy the mystery safely. That way you keep all the fun of the scare without any of the worry. So stay brave, stay curious, and never let a good legend scare you away. A good legend can be thrilling to share, even when you know it is fake. That is the real fun of a ghost story, as long as you stay curious. In the end, one imaginary guest taught a whole platform how stories spread, and that might just be the most powerful thing the little demon ever did. If you enjoyed this deep dive, then think about subscribing to the channel. That way, you will never miss the next Roblox mystery that we uncover.